insight questions. So the English teachers right now, as we speak, maybe certainly tomorrow in English class, are going to be going over those with the students. So Mr. Lamorato, Mr. Chesser, and Mr. Osberg will all be reviewing those essays that your sons are writing, especially for the grammar and structure, but also for the content. We're more than willing to read them all over also if your son wants to forward it to us. And then finally, something called demonstrated interest. A good number of colleges do track what is known as demonstrated interest. We will have over 100 college reps who will visit St. Augustine High School in the next 2 months, during September, October, and early November. They will come into the counseling center and sit down with whatever seniors show up. Sometimes it's only one, sometimes it's 5 or 6, and sometimes it's 10 or 11 to sit and talk with that admissions counselor. They keep track of who shows up. So if your son is saying, oh, I don't need to go to those, I know about the college already, he should go to that. If he's interested in that college, he's going to file an application with them, he should go and meet that rep. The rep who comes here and talks to them is on the admission committee. That is an admissions counselor. That is one of the people that's going to be voting on whether he gets in or not. So they need to be shaking those hands and making a good impression during those meetings. Some schools, demonstrated interest is not an important thing. The University of California campuses, all 9 of them, it means nothing. CSU campuses, it means nothing. But places like the University of Michigan, Notre Dame, it means a lot. They're looking for students who are interested in them. All right, now let's go on to testing. Many colleges will be test optional, as I've said already. There is a website where you can double check who's test optional and who isn't at fairtest.org. Also, in SCORE, you can tell if a college requires testing or not. And we'll make sure your sons know where to look, where to find that information in SCORE. The California state colleges, the UC system and the CSU, California State University system, are test blind. Even if your son does submit scores to them, they will not use them in admission, period. They will use them for placement after the student has been admitted and accepted an offer of admission. So that's why there's a place on the application to submit the scores, but they are not taken into account during admission. And then the University of San Diego, about a year ago, did the same thing. They are now test blind also. Most other private schools and out-of-state publics are test optional. A handful of schools have gone back to requiring tests. So if your son is a very high flyer and he's interested in MIT, they require testing. Okay, the Florida schools, University of Florida, Florida State, require testing. So a handful of schools have gone back and required testing. If your son is going to test, and we recommend that they get a test under their belt, even if they're not sure they're going to use it. Just because you test doesn't mean you have to send it. If you test and it's not a very good score, you just don't send it anywhere. Okay, you have to actually pay College Board or ACT a little bit to send to the various colleges. So we recommend that they get an SAT or an ACT under their belt so that we can help them decide if that score would be helpful in admissions at certain colleges. To that end, we offered practice tests the last 2 Saturdays, or a couple of Saturdays here, and Jonathan will have the results of those for those of you whose sons took them and you're here tonight to get those results. And we will have the SAT boot camp and an ACT boot camp on campus going forward. I think most all of you, hopefully all of you, saw the emails that we've sent out about that. And we will resend a reminder email out probably early next week about those boot camps if you're interested in your son taking that 2 Saturday boot camp to prepare for his test. As I understand it, the October SAT is full in San Diego. Students have come to me, said, I can't find a place to take the October test. So I've recommended the November or December test. And just 2 days ago, we talked about offering the SAT on campus again, like we did last year, and we've decided to go ahead and do that. So during October, on October 12th, which for all the underclassmen is PSAT testing day, we will be offering an SAT, school day SAT here on campus. You will get a flyer or an email about that later this week. I think by Friday, I'll get something out to all the families about the SAT school day. You will pay us directly. You won't register on the SAT College Board website. You'll send the money in directly to us. We'll set up a payment program for that on campus here. The November test and even the December test are good. So if you don't do the test on campus in October, or if you do the test in campus on campus in October and you want to test a second time in November or December, that's a great idea too. That way your son will have a couple of tests. And the colleges who do take the test scores almost always super score them. So if he does better on the reading and writing in one sitting and then does better on the math in the next sitting, they'll combine those from different sittings for what they call a super score. The fee waivers I've already mentioned to you are for low-income families. The College Board is very particular about the fee waivers, and you do need to meet their standards, and it is pretty stringent standards. You can go online at the College Board and see what the qualifications are, or I'll be glad to send you a link if you would like to. Just send me an email about the fee waiver process. And remember that the earlier, if you are thinking of getting registered for the November or December test, do it now, do it tonight when you get home, do it this weekend. The earlier you register, the more likely you are to get a place near your home. And October 12th for the Saints SAT. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Ms. Colorado, who's going to talk to you a bit about the applications that your sons will be using.
All right, application. Starting with our CSU application, California State University application. There are 20, this is a public system in our state, and there are 23 different CSUs all over the state of California. They use this application system called Cal State Apply. So students create one account under Cal State Apply. And this application, I think, is the easiest application for students to do. If they have their transcript in front of them, they just need to put their courses from 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade into this application system, along with their semester grades. Take probably less than an hour for them to fill out this application. There are no essays in this application. As Dr. Ray mentioned, there are no SAT or ACT scores that need to be sent to the CSU system. There's no letters of recommendation. And unfortunately, there's also not a section for extracurricular activities in the CSU application. They're really just looking at grades, rigor of coursework that the students have taken from 9th through senior year, and they're focusing on that. The CSU system emphasizes practical career training pathways in college for students. It's the most financially cheaper option, I guess, in our state for a four-year university system. So we recommend that students apply to at least one or two CSUs. One, because the non-impacted CSUs in the system tend to be easier for our students to get into. They could be target schools for many of our students. They can be safe options for another handful of students. And they're also a safe, affordable option too. The average tuition price at CSUs is about $8,000. So it's a more affordable option. Let's see. And down here it says just the GPA, no test scores, just to clear that up. No test scores are sent to the CSU system. And it goes live on October 1st. So students cannot, at this moment, create a CSU Apply account, but starting October 1st, they can create the account, send their application, and they have until November 30th. That's the deadline for the CSU system. The UC system. Our other public university system in the state of California, University of California, there's 9 UCs. Again, kind of going throughout the state of California. This application is available now. However, students cannot submit the application until October 1st. And just like with the CSUs, they have all the way until November 30th to submit their application from October 1st to November 30th. Again, there's no SAT or ACT scores that are sent to the UC system, although this application is a little bit different. Students now can list all of their extracurricular and awards activities through the UC application. There are no letters of recommendation though, but students have a chance to kind of express themselves through the personal insight questions. There are 8 prompts and students write 4. They choose 4 of the prompts that they want to answer. They submit their prompts through the system here and they fill it out 1 time. And then they can apply to 1 or all 9 of the UCs. And the average tuition cost for the UC system is about $15,000. So still a little bit more affordable than some private universities and out-of-state public schools. Okay. Then we have the common application. This is the most lengthy application, in my opinion, for students to fill out. They do have to put their senior year courses. They will write an essay for the common application that they submit to all of the schools that they're applying to through the common application. And as mentioned, I think Dr. A said that students will be working on their essay in their English classes. And some schools on the common application, in addition to the common app essay, they require supplemental essays or other smaller prompts that students need to answer. Why do you want to attend USC? Or tell us a little bit more about yourself or your favorite academic subject. So there might be additional supplemental essays for students to fill out in this common application. They will fill out the bulk of the common application 1 time. Again, their senior year courses, the common app essay, all of their extracurricular activities, and then they add all of the schools that use the common application onto their account here, and then of course send each one individually and pay for each one individually. And that's the same for the CSU and the UC application here. You have to pay for each individual school that the student is sending it to. And the schools on the Common App generally will request letters of recommendation as well. One from the counselor, which is kind of the bigger picture letter of recommendation for the student, commenting on activities that they do, leadership qualities, academic interests or academic growth. And then there is a letter of recommendation coming from a teacher of their choice. And we ask students to ask 1 teacher for a letter of recommendation, but in some cases, some schools might require 2 letters of recommendation, and then students can ask for that second letter. The Common App, I think, can take a while, depending on how long a student writes their essays or takes time to get it revised. If there's any supplemental essays, that's additional time for them to fill out the application. The deadlines also vary with the common application. So the CSU and UC is November 30th. That's the deadline for those 2 systems. The common applications, the deadlines can vary. On the next slide, but the common applications, some colleges can have a deadline of December 1st, December 15th, January 1st, January 15th, February 1st. They typically like the 1st or the 15th of the month for deadlines. And on the common application, it will kind of show a timeline for students too in their deadlines. It kind of helps them stay organized for the Common App schools. However, if a student is going to be applying to SDSU, UCSD, and USD, those are 3 different application systems. And so having a document, maybe an Excel spreadsheet, could be helpful for the boys to put all of the schools that they're applying to, regardless of what application they're submitting it through, and the various deadlines and any other comments necessary for their application. There are other applications as well. So some schools have their own application system. I know Georgetown has its own application system. The state of Texas, its public schools have something called Apply Texas or Texas Apply. And that's a system similar to our CSU system. So we have students who can be creating 4 or 5 different application accounts. You see CSU Common App, there's one called the Coalition application, or Georgetown. So that's just something to keep in mind, that there are some schools that have their own system for applying. And when possible, if a school has multiple ways of applying, they might have the Common application and the Coalition app. We encourage our boys to apply through the Common application. It's very easy application system to input all of their stuff. They fill it out, and so then they kind of minimize the number of applications they do have, number of accounts with applications. So here's the calendar of deadlines. So as I mentioned, again, the UC and the CSU application is November 30th. Common application, the schools vary. USC, another popular school for our boys to apply to, that deadline is December 1st. So pretty early on for private schools. Villanova, January 15th. Then we also have boys who are going to be applying to early action or early decision periods. So early action and early decision, that deadline is usually November 1st. Sometimes it might be November 15th, but definitely in November. So the early action is just getting their application sent in early. The schools are only evaluating the student based on their freshman through junior year grades. Because by November, when they're sending their application in, they will not have their semester grades until January. And through the early rounds, schools will be notifying students of a decision by Christmas time, end of December, early January. So before their semester grades are even published. And so they're really just evaluating the student from 9th grade to 11th grade. And we recommend students to apply early action, early decision if their senior year grades are not going to really change the story academically, or their activities that they're doing during senior year aren't going to really change that story. They've already been in leadership positions through junior year, or they've had the grades that they're pretty much going to be having senior year as well. So we recommend early action programs for that. Early action is non-binding. Early decision, same deadline, same ideas, except that it is a binding contract with the student in the university, saying that if I get admitted to your college, I will go to your school. Okay, so that's a binding contract. Parents have to sign off on that, and counselors have to sign off on that as well. Students are only allowed to apply to one college under early decision. If you're telling a school, yes, I will go to your school if you accept me, you can't say that to 2 or 3 schools. Okay. Any questions on early decision, early action? And those deadlines come a lot sooner than the students realize, with November 1st and November 15th. So if anyone is deciding on applying early action, maybe early decision, they should really start now on their application, so they have time to get their essays reviewed and their extracurricular activities reviewed, etc. Many students are going to be applying. We have some starting now with the application process, and they'll go all the way through January, maybe early February, to send to schools that have February 1st or February 15th deadlines. I like to recommend students to try and get all of their applications finished by Christmas time. Even if they have a February 1st deadline, just get the applications in by Christmas time, and then they can enjoy the holidays, they can enjoy their internships in January, and don't need to worry about their college applications. If we can encourage them to do that, I know that there'll still be students that want to apply in February. And we're available to review their applications too. They can stop by before school, during lunch, after school, office hours, and have their application reviewed by us. We know where kind of the common mistakes are in the applications. A lot of students forget to put their second semester religion class on their application, and so we remind them to put all their courses, even their second semester courses, on there. We just kind of go through all of the pieces and make sure that it's accurate before you probably spend $60 or $70 on the application. Okay, so please encourage them to stop by our offices. We also have counseling interns in there. We have 2 counseling interns this year from USC who will be helping students. They helped during the college workshop this summer, so they're familiar with the application process and the different pieces. They will be helping the students with essays if they need another person to review their essay or brainstorm ideas on how to answer a prompt, as well as kind of looking through their transcripts and making sure that they're putting all of their activities in correctly on their application. So our counseling center, there will always be somebody in that center to help review an application at all times. That's it. And Tim will talk about SCORE.
All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you for your patience earlier. I assure you what we lack in technical skills, we make up for in our counseling skills. Much stronger. I'm actually going to take you guys live onto the website just to show you a little bit from the student point of view of what they're looking at, and I want to point out a few important things for you. So this is what it'll look like when the students log in and they've got their front page here. I want to take your attention on this front page about halfway down. As they scroll down, you're going to see upcoming visits listed right here. Okay, upcoming visits and the opportunity to register for them. Our first visits are actually happening tomorrow. We did send out an email to the boys. We are going to be talking to them tomorrow as well, but I want to make sure that they know of 2 visits tomorrow that we have, which is Point Loma Nazarene University. They're coming in at 10 a.m. Loyola University in Maryland coming in at 11 a.m. tomorrow. And then on Friday of this week, we have Penn State. So those are just kind of our first 3 that are happening. It really starts to ramp up. There's a couple weeks where we get really jam-packed. Obviously, some of these are during class time. These students, there is a permission slip in the counseling center that they can come down and get and bring to their teacher to sign, and then they show up back to the counseling center to be able to miss a little bit of class. Ideally, I mean, Penn State is going to be during office hours. So, you know, if your boys want to meet somebody from Penn State or have that conversation, they don't have to miss any class. And some of these go during the lunch hour and so on. Because there are so many, on average, we get visited by about 100 schools throughout the fall. So we do have to kind of plug them in all day long. To see the full calendar, there's an option to see all here. And unfortunately, I know it's a common question. Unfortunately, on your parent account, this information is not available. It's something we're trying to work with SCORE to have them make it available to you. But you can always ask your son to log in and take a look at our calendar. And then you can scroll all the way through into next week. UC San Diego right after Labor Day. So early in the morning on that Tuesday, UC San Diego's here. And you can see Gonzaga, which is a very popular one, coming in early on. So I don't like these guys to not know about this until, you know, late September and say, oops, I missed that. So we inform them during the college workshop of this. We're going into their classroom the next 2 days for anybody that wasn't in the college workshop to hear about this. But you can scroll through. If they click register, gives us a heads up that they are planning to attend or have interest in attending in case they forget. Believe it or not, sometimes our boys forget things. So we want to make sure, and all of a sudden I can say, oh, so-and-so, you know, wanted to see Grand Canyon University, and let me go see what they're doing in class, and maybe they can come and meet that individual. So lots of schools, these keep changing each day. If you don't see a school on the calendar right now, I think I added about 3 more schools today that put in their requests, but we've got a whole host of schools for them to be able to see, register, and then just come get that permission slip if they need to miss class. Okay, so that's a very important piece. Dr. Ray explained why, for those 2 reasons. One, just to learn more about that school. The expert is here. They can ask us about these schools. We know a little bit about a lot of schools, but these are the experts. And 2, to make that connection, right? This person is going to read their application. St. Augustine is part of their assigned territory. And so if they can make notes that I had a conversation with so-and-so and they really seemed interested and they asked great questions, and those are the types of things that can make a little bit of a difference, okay? I want to show you their college list. Hopefully this looks a little bit familiar. You can see this from your parent point of view, and some of you have already started suggesting schools for your sons to look into in the suggested column. And what we've been telling the boys up until now is just start putting schools in the following column, schools that have piqued your interest. Okay, it doesn't mean you're going to apply to that school, but it just means you're kind of bookmarking them so you can come back and say, you know, I may be interested in this school. So you can have a lot. Currently, I've got 33 in my fake account here. It's not going to apply to 33 schools, but it's bookmarked it. They're getting to the point now, and we're going to stress this to them in the next couple of days, where they need to start transitioning from the following column to the applying column. Okay, and that's really important for a couple of reasons. One, that's the way they communicate to us as their counselor where their stuff needs to get sent. Okay? So this is, we log on, we look under each student and we see, okay, they're applying to Boston College and Baylor. I'm going to send their letters of recommendation. I'm going to send their transcript. I'm going to send their school report, school profile, all the things that the schools need. That's their mode of communication. If this is what their page looks like, and they come into me and they say, Mr. Golden, I just got an email from Cal Lutheran and they said they haven't gotten any of my stuff. I'm going to call up their store and I'm going to say, that's because you haven't told me you're applying. And so then we move it over to applying. And again, usually the schools aren't going to punish them if our stuff's late. Our stuff's only going to be late if they don't tell us. They won't take their application if they didn't send their application. So that's the essential piece. Sometimes the kids wonder about letters of recommendation and they say, you know, this teacher, my application is due tomorrow and they still haven't sent my letter of recommendation. What do I do? Should I send my application? They need to send their application when their application is ready to be sent. And whenever our documents go or whenever the teacher's letter goes, that's fine. It'll match up. The systems are built to match those things up. Okay. The other thing that happens when they move schools over is they automatically, so they just drag it, drop it into the applying column, and it pops up and it tells them immediately what method. So is this a Common App school? And they can apply through the Common App. And it tells them what options they have. So Cal Lutheran, I think that's what I dragged over, for example, has early action. So a student that wants to get their application in that first window of review can choose early action and get it in by November 15th. Doesn't necessarily give them an advantage, but it gives them the first look. And it does show the school, okay, I'm ready. I think, you know, I'm ready to be accepted by your school. And they find out earlier. They usually find out in December or January, as opposed to having to wait until March, like most of the regular decision deadlines. If they need more time, if they strategically want to use their first semester to improve their grades because it's a school that they're not quite sure if they're going to get into, they can wait and do regular decisions. These are conversations we have with the boys in our office. We're going to be seeing them all one by one throughout the month of September after we go visit their classrooms over these next 2 days. So we'll have those conversations. And the boys know that they're welcome to stop in anytime as well. They don't have to wait for us to call them in. They can bring their questions to us. So we put in those couple things and drop that into the applying column. You'll see if I do a Cal State school, like we said, there's only one deadline. It's just a regular decision, get your Cal State in by November 30th. So this is a great organizational tool for them. Once they've applied, they can move it over to the applied column. Not as essential, but it's helpful for us to know that it was actually sent as opposed to just kind of hanging out here, and we'll remind them of that as well. Also on this page is a link right here that says application documents. This is where they're going to request their letters of recommendation. So when I click that, you see it's a very simple process where they click on the link that says request recommendation. They can type in any teacher. Just think of Mr. Kudal right now. He writes a few for our seniors. I would click on his name. They would write a short little message here. Ideally, that short message would say something like, thank you for agreeing to write me this letter, because they would have already talked to them in person. They don't want to be presumptuous and just send this to them and expect that it's going to be written and that the teacher can do it. Some teachers get too many and have to say no and say, you know, find another teacher. So we tell them to start this process by going back to that teacher's classroom, asking them if that teacher is willing to write the letter. And then they say, okay, thank you so much. I'll follow up with the invite. This invite from SCORE connects the teacher on here so that the teacher can then upload into that student's account, which we then send. Teachers do not send the letter, but we obviously can't send it, so the teacher writes it and uploads it. But we manage it that way. We all see it on the back end and send a nice little tidy package via email. So I want to mention one more thing, and then I'll get back to letters of recommendation. The one more thing that I want to mention to you is some of our boys are already seeing, as they scan through this list, this green icon. And this is something that's brand new. It was literally just launched at the beginning of this month. And SCORE has now moved forward to allow students to apply directly to schools through their platform. Okay, so I can click on this up at the top, apply to SCORE, and it's going to show me that here is their application, and they can fill it out. So this is brand new. Because it's brand new, again, it's one of those things where we assume it will work. However, it might be best this year to stick to the old ways, to stick to Common App. All these that are on here, Claremont McKenna, Loyola Marymount, see, it's not a lot yet because it's new. Notre Dame, Arizona, they're all on the Common App. So essentially, if they do some schools, if they were to do, say, Syracuse through the Common App, because they can't do it through SCORE, they would be filling out a whole Common App. And then if they went to do Notre Dame through here, they would be filling out a whole new application. That kind of defeats the purpose. So I'm hoping within a year's time, most of the schools on the Common App will join up this way and we can do it that way. But for this year, probably is a time saver to just stick to Common App and stick to the other websites and platforms just to save them time. Okay, I'm going to jump back into our slides here because I do want to mention a few more things about letters of recommendation. So as was previously mentioned, letters of recommendation are not accepted for UC schools or Cal States. So I try and remind the boys, and perhaps you can do the same. If you look at their list and they're only applying to UCs and Cal States, don't have them ask a teacher for a letter of recommendation. It happens every year. And then I look at their account and I say, no one is ever going to read this letter. And the teacher took time out of their day to write. So we don't want them just thinking, oh, my friends are asking for letters of recommendation, I better go ask for one too. No, make sure that you have a school where you need a letter of recommendation for. Letters must be requested through SCORE. There is a point sometimes on the Common App where there's a little bit of confusion. There's a step on the Common App where it requires the students to put in who's going to be their recommender. And they will put the teacher name in. We just ask that they don't put in the teacher's email, because it can confuse the teacher when they get an email from SCORE that says write a letter and another email from Common App. Again, it's not the end of the world if they do that. Teachers usually reach out to us and say, why did I get this? And we say, you can ignore one of them because we're doing it through SCORE. And we're going to show that to the boys tomorrow and Friday. But we want them to do it through SCORE to get that, because that's where we're going to send it from. Give plenty of notice to the teachers. Counselors already know they don't have to request it from us. We know if they're applying to a school that needs one, and we automatically write it. So that's a done deal. With the teachers, they need to give them at the very minimum 2 weeks notice. We like them to give them 3-4 weeks notice, just so that the teachers have time to organize their lives a little bit in terms of who they need to write for first and when they need to write them. We encourage the students to use more recent teachers. So 11th grade teachers are kind of the most popular choice. The teacher letter of recommendation is essentially shining a light on the student as a student in the classroom. Okay, the counselor writes a letter that's much more broad. It's the letter that says, these are all the wonderful things they were involved in. Here's the leadership they did. Here's the type of person that they are around campus. The teacher letter is very specific to that class, and the teacher needs to be able to write how that individual acted and succeeded in that classroom. And so hearing it from a 9th grade teacher means a lot less than hearing it from an 11th grade teacher. Okay, that's 3 years removed as opposed to just from last year. Sometimes senior year teachers, if a student feels like they haven't made that connection yet or doesn't know who to ask, if they're applying regular decision and they're not applying until December or January, it's fair game to ask a senior teacher. Okay, if they're trying to get one in by November 1, senior teacher probably not ideal because they've probably only had them for less than 2 months at that point. So just kind of keep that in mind. There are some exceptions to that rule that I just stated. If they had a teacher early on, but that teacher's also been their coach, or has run a program that they've been a big part of and really knows them, that can be a strong letter too. So again, it's something to consult with us on, and we'll let them know if it makes sense or not, or if they should probably go in a different direction with who they're asking. Again, thank you notes is something we stress with the boys. Teachers technically don't need to write these. They like to write them. You know, we get in this profession to help those that we work with, so we're happy to do it. But it can take a good 30 to 60 minutes to write a quality letter. And when those start to stack up, that's a good bit of time. And so again, just reminding the boys of that common courtesy. I want to touch briefly on financial aid. Now we're going to have a financial aid night in October, and I have that on the next slide, where we'll have an expert come in from one of the colleges and actually speak in greater detail to all this. But a few things we want to make you aware of. The FAFSA. FAFSA is key to all financial aid. FAFSA is an acronym, stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. So it is free to fill out. If you come across anything that says that you should be paying money for a FAFSA, that's a scam. But it's a government website. It's just FAFSA.gov, and you go on there. You cannot start that until October 1st. If you go on tonight and try to sign up, be signing up for the wrong year. Okay, it's going to launch for this year's seniors, for the people that are enrolling in 2023. That'll launch on October 1st. We do encourage you to file, the sooner the better, to file the FAFSA, because colleges can't award you money until they have evaluated your financial situation. And so sending it out in October or November is more beneficial than waiting till those deadlines in March, when schools have been doling out money for several months. In addition to the FAFSA, you may come across something. Question?
I do.
Yeah.
My question is, if I have a child that's already in college and I filled out the FAFSA, will they consider the application that's already in for the coming student?
Well, you would I believe you would refile again for this coming year, and you would now have 2 students that you would put under your name.
One application.
I believe that's correct. Yes, and then it's actually a benefit when they start to calculate that you have yes, that you have 2 there, as opposed to, unfortunately, some people ask if I'm still sending one son to Saints and then sending another to college. They don't.
They do ask that. Are you paying for tuition at private elementary or high school? I think
Yeah, it just doesn't benefit you quite as much as it does to say I'm sending you to college. The next piece that I wanted to mention is something that you may or may not run into. It's called the CSS profile. CSS profile is used by many private schools, not all of them, but usually it's private schools that want to take a deeper dive into your finances. Whereas the FAFSA, I've been told, looks at roughly 25 to 30 data points. The CSS profile looks at close to 70 data points, going deeper into assets and other things like that. So it may be something that you come across. It's provided by the same folks, the College Board, who do SAT testing, AP testing, and they do the CSS profile as well. We will file the Cal Grant GPA verification for all seniors automatically. Oftentimes I have a boy come in my office and with a form and say, can you sign this? I need to file my Cal Grant. We do that automatically. Dr. Ray's been doing that for years. So that's part of his regular procedures to get that filed. And then if a student does enroll at a school in the state of California and meets the GPA requirements, they can perhaps get some money via the Cal Grants. Scholarships is another piece to be aware of. We do have a scholarship list available on the counseling page. I actually will take a moment and show you all where that is, just because sometimes it can be hard to navigate. So if you go to our website, academics, under counseling, and we scroll all the way down where it says college financial aid and scholarships. We have this master scholarship list. So we get lots and lots of emails throughout the year of scholarships that are available. And as you can see right now, we populate the list, we try and put in what the eligibility criteria is, what the amount is. And we are in the process of going through and updating the dates. So the dates change every year. So February 7th, 2022. We generally tell the boys if it was this date, it'll probably be around the same for 2023, but we want to go in and check and get that all accurate. It's a nice task for our interns to click through all these, make sure the links are still active, and update the dates. But you can see there are many scholarships, some of which they will qualify for, some of which they may not. But this is something we encourage them to do all year long. Too often the boys wait until all their acceptances are in, and then they see everything, and we're in February and March, and they're like, the school's going to cost more than what I thought it was, and how do I apply for scholarship? They can start looking at a lot of these right now and start knocking out some scholarships bit by bit. So we do have an exhaustive list available to them, and sometimes if it's a really popular or good one that we want to highlight, we'll just send a direct email to you folks or to them saying, hey, this is a great one that we know some of our guys have won before. Let's go ahead and do that. So the scholarship list, there's a lot of services out there. FastWeb is one that we highlight. So fastweb.com, they go in and fill out their personal information. It kind of filters down to the scholarships that they will be eligible for based on what they filled out about themselves. We've long wondered, is FastWeb a great resource? And it was kind of interesting during our college workshop. One of our interns is, he's in his master's program. He's fresh out of undergrad. So he just finished and went through this. He told the boys, he said, I did FastWeb. And he said he was actually awarded about a dozen scholarships that totaled about 15 to 20,000 total. So, 1,000 here, 2,000 here. So that was a great testimonial for us to hear that there are people that are getting these scholarships. You just have to take the time. You have to take the time. And again, it's not anything that they necessarily want to always do, especially if there's an essay they have to write or something like that. There's some that are easier than others. But you also have to figure it's a little more work to apply, probably less people apply. The ones where it's just like, here, click these few things, it's probably more common that there's going to be more competition for them. But taking the time to apply to these things are great and important. There are many other free ones. Again, it's not anything you should necessarily have to pay for. Be aware of those things. There's a lot of good free resources for those things. Check your workplaces for scholarships. Those of you that may work for larger companies, a lot of those companies offer scholarships to their employees' children. Could be something to look into. ROTC scholarships, biggest scholarship that's out there, right? That's going to cover full tuition, but obviously it comes to a commitment, being in the Reserve Officer Training Corps. But that's something that they want to get on early because it's a longer process and there's some detailed steps with that. So definitely, if that's something that they're interested in, they should look into that sooner than later. Check colleges for merit money. Again, some colleges are better at this than others. It is something that you can investigate a little bit. It's something when they talk to reps or when you meet with reps that you can inquire about. And there are online financial aid predictors. So each school does have a requirement. They put on something like a net price calculator where you can put in your income info and try and get an idea of what they might expect you to pay to attend that school. It's unofficial, but it can help you plan a little bit as to what those schools offer. And that's available on all the financial pages, financial aid pages for those colleges. The last word, thanks for hanging with us tonight. We have that financial aid night on October 11th. We'll be right back in here. So if you're able to attend, we do encourage that. We have our annual APA College Topics Night on October 26th this year. A few different sessions usually available at that one. One of our most popular ones tends to be case studies where you have admissions officers talking about how they go through applications and what they look for and what stands out to them. So again, in late October, it's still extremely relevant to our senior families and senior students to know those things. We talked about keeping a calendar. Again, it's important. These dates can get away from them pretty quickly. So we want to make sure that they're organized with all of that. set limits and boundaries for talking about college. You know, we see it every year where there's anxiety around it, there's stress around it. Our boys sometimes aren't always the most organized with it, and good-natured parents sometimes press them a little bit to be on top of all these things. A helpful thing is to just set aside a day and a time for college review. Just, Sunday evenings, we're going to sit down for an hour, review everything, make sure you're set, see if you have any questions on stuff, talk about it, and then save the rest of the dinners throughout the week for other conversations so that they don't always feel like they're being pressed on those things. Just little strategies that sometimes help keep the peace at home. And then lastly, be good to each other. What is right for someone else's son may not be the best thing for your son. And so we just want to make sure that everybody is doing what makes sense for their son. We stress that in our office is finding the right fit. They're going to spend at least 4 years at the next school that they go to, likely in a new city, still perhaps maybe here. And we just want to make sure that it's where they're going to be happy and where they're going to get what they want and what they need. And that it's not, just pulling out US News rankings and saying, I'm going to try and go for this highest ranked school. College planning has evolved beyond that. And we want to make sure that our boys are in a place that suits them well. That's it for the evening. We're just a couple minutes past where we tried to be. We're happy to hang out for any questions. If there are any questions for the larger group, feel free to throw up a hand and we can do that for the next 5 minutes or so. Yes.
How do we find our SCORE logon information?
So SCORE was something that when your son signed up, you should have been invited to be a part of. If you have not gotten onto SCORE or do not know your login, email your counselor or your son's counselor, and they will resend you the invite. And it's a very simple process once that invite shows up in your email.
Thanks.
Yes. Yes.
The USB Torero program.
Torero Promise. Yes, it is. Yeah. So the Torero Promise was launched a few years ago. It's a guaranteed admission program for Catholic high school students in San Diego that graduate with a GPA above a 3.7 and meeting a few other criteria in terms of honors and AP classes. And it does guarantee admission into USD out of St. Augustine. So it is still active, and there is often a financial component associated with it as well. Yeah.
For San Diego State, I thought I heard a couple of years ago that there was certain like area codes where there was some sort of, I don't know, preference is the right word, or consideration. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Every state college has its service area. San Diego State service area is everything south of 56, I think, 56 somewhere in there. And so those students, San Diego State is impacted. So meeting the minimum requirements for CSUs will not get you into San Diego State. Students who live in the service area have a higher standard than the minimum, but it's lower than anyone who lives outside the service area. And then people outside the state, it's even higher. So the service area gives you a leg up. And that's why it's a little difficult for our students to get into CSU Long Beach and CSU Fullerton, because they're impacted in their service area.
If you do have any other questions, the counselors will hang around for a few minutes, but we do want to transition to those of you that are here for the SCORE back night. And Jonathan, you may come up here. So thank you everybody for being here tonight. To transition here.